All right, your quick review. On one step equations. If I start with x plus 6 equals negative 13. In order to solve this addition equation, I told you that we would take whatever we're trying to add to or subtract from the variable. The goal is to isolate the variable on one side. So I want to take this plus 6 and move it to the other side. I have to undo adding 6. What's the opposite of adding 6?
Subtracting 6.
So I subtract 6 on the left side and I subtract 6 on the right side. The plus 6 and minus 6 are additive inverses. They cancel each other. I have x equals. This step right here is where I know most students miss these problems that we're doing with equations. Both of these are negative. Don't think of the sign in front of 6 as a subtraction sign. Think of it as an integer sign, okay? So now you have both signs that are negative. So what's our rule when the signs are the same? Okay, same sign, add. So that gives me 19, and it's going to be negative because I keep the sign. Our subtraction equation, if I gave you y minus 3 equals negative 12. What is the opposite of taking 3 away from a number? So I'm going to come underneath to balance. Remember, your golden rule said what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. The minus 3 and the plus 3 are additive inverses again, and I get y equals, what am I going to do here?
Subtract.
And why do I subtract those two numbers? Different signs. Subtract. Okay, what is 12 minus 3? 9. And I'm going to ask you, do you have more negatives or more positives there? So my answer is going to be negative. Okay, that's addition and subtraction. What's the coefficient of my variable x and my coefficient of my variable y in both of those equations? Do you see a number in front of the variables? So if we don't see a number in front of a variable, what's it understood to be? 1. Okay. So let's look at a multiplication. 3y is equal to negative 15. That 3y means what? 3 times y. So what's the operation that undoes multiplication? I'm going to divide by 3 on this side, and I divide by 3 on the right side. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1, and 1 times y gives me y equals, what's negative 15 divided by 3?
5.
Negative 5. And when we're doing multiplication and division, we refer back to when your signs are different, you're unhappy, and your answers are negative, right? Okay. Then our last one that we did last night was we had a number divided by a given number, and we said it was going to be equal to 3. Well, this time let's divide it by negative 7. Let's take a number divided by negative 7. What's the opposite of dividing by 7? So I'm going to multiply by negative 7 on each side, and I'm going to multiply by negative 7 on each side here. When I multiply, it undoes my division, so I can cross out my 7s, and I get B equals negative 21. Those are your one-step equations that you did last night. Now, not showing your work on these is going to make it more difficult for the two-step that I'm fixing to show you today. Okay? So, are we ready for the two-step? All right, here we go. Solving two-step equations. I'm just going to start with three x plus 1 is equal to negative 14. This particular problem, you look at it, does it resemble the addition problem that you did last night? Except this time, what's in front of your variable? You have a coefficient of 3, don't you? So our goal when our equations look like this, to help you understand what you're going to do, the first thing I'm going to tell you is to isolate your variable, okay? So first thing we're going to do is isolate the variable. We're going to isolate the variable by putting him in a box. Because when we get sick, we get isolated. They put us in quarantine, right? Yes, so now, what am I trying to do to 3 times a number? I'm trying to add 1 to it, aren't I? So my goal now is to move that 1 like we did last night, moving that constant to the other side. We want to undo the adding 1. So what's the opposite of adding 1? So I'm going to subtract 1 and subtract 1 here. Now I've balanced that equation. Plus 1 and minus 1 are called additive inverses, and that cancels the 1 on the left side of the equation. So now I'm going to bring down what's in my box, which is 3x equals. Now I look at the right side. Some of you are going to think of that minus in front of the 1 as a subtraction sign. I don't want you to think of it as a subtraction. Think of it as the sign of the integer that it's in front of. So it would be negative 1. Circle your signs. Now you're going to use your integer rules for adding. Is 14 and 1, do they have the same sign or different signs? Okay, same sign. We're going to add. So what's 14 plus 1? 15, and I keep my negative. So if they have the same sign, I add them and keep the sign. Now, does this look like your one-step multiplication problem that you had last night? Okay, so what is the opposite of multiplying by 3?
Division.
So I'm going to divide by 3, divide by 3. So I get x equals negative 5. Okay, if I come over here to my instructions, first thing we did was we isolated the variable. The second thing we did was subtract 1, right? What was the third thing we did?
We divided by 3.
Divide by 3. So I'm going to tell you, after you isolate the variable, the next thing you're going to be undoing is addition or subtraction. The third thing you're going to be undoing is multiplication or division. It's like we're going backwards from the order of operations, okay? So we got to undo addition or subtraction first, Then we undo multiplication or division. All right, let's work another one. What if I gave you 6y minus 10 equals 20? What's the first thing I'm going to do? Isolate my variable.
Then you add 10.
Okay, my next step is to do what? Undo addition or subtraction. Kagan, what am I going to do to each side? Plus 10 and plus 10 on each side, correct? Minus 10 and plus 10 are additive inverses. They cancel, so I bring down 6y, keep my equals lined up. Now what's 20 plus 10? 30.
Divided by 6, which white is
Okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do? Divide by 6. Divide by 6. So I get y equals 5. Is this two-step hard? No. Okay. So I'm going to show you the next thing that we can do is called a check method. Your check method is a sure guarantee for you to check your solution to see if you got it right. Okay, you're telling me that y equals 5 is a solution. So if it is my solution, I should be able to take 5 when we evaluated our expressions and we put those numbers in the place of our variables and found out what the expressions were worth. We can do the same thing with the equation to see if it makes it true. So I'm going to take my original equation, 6y minus 10 equals 20. And I'm going to substitute 5 in the place of y. So when I substitute it in, the 6 in front of the y means that I'm going to multiply, correct? And then I will subtract 10 equals 20. What is 6 times 5? 30 minus 10 equals 20. Well, what is 30 minus 10? So is 20 equal to 20? That's true, it checks. So if that solution makes the left side of the equation equal the right side of the equation, then you have found the correct solution. Okay? You have to watch your addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division when you're looking at these. All right, let's do a different one. What if I said negative 4x plus 7 equals 9? What if it's equal to 9? What am I going to do? Isolate my variable. Okay, what's my next thing to undo? I'm going to subtract 7. Subtract 7. What happens to my plus 7 and minus 7? Cancel. Minus 4x equals positive 2. Now what am I going to do? Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. I did this on purpose. X is equal to 2 divided by negative 4, right? Does that make it a negative 2/4 as my answer? Yes. Is it okay to come back with a fraction? Yes. So that 2 is not divisible by 4, so that means I'm not going to get a whole number. So I leave it 2 divided by negative 4, and that becomes a fraction. Well, what do you know that 2/4 can reduce to? 1/2, and it's negative. Does that also mean that it's negative 0.5? So if you go to your calculator and you take 2 divided by negative 4, do you get negative 0.5? So is it okay to come back with fractions and decimals as our solutions? Yes. But if it comes back as a fraction, when you go to check, it might be easier for you to check what? Decimals. So let's check our decimal and see if we're right. Let's take negative 4 and multiply it times negative 0.5 plus 7 equals 9. What is 4 times 5/10?
2.
Comes back with 2, and a negative times a negative makes a positive, plus 7 equals 9. Is 9 equal to 9?
Yes, ma'am.
It checks, so I've got the right answer. Okay? Your first 24 problems are going to be working problems that look like these 3. How do I want you to write them? How do I want you to show me your work? Just like I have right here on the board. What could also be 4? No, X could not be 4.
Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16 plus 7.
That gives you negative 9, not positive 9. So you're trying to figure it in your head by using number sense. I want you to learn to balance the equation the way that we're doing right here, okay? Presley?
Do we have to use the check method on our homework?
The check method is your guarantee of seeing if you got the right
So
solution.
we don't have to do it, but
That's your guarantee. I'm not requiring you to do it, but it's your guarantee. Okay? The next type of 2-step that we can see, there's another 2-step, okay? I'm going to show you 2 methods to do this one, and it relates back to our distributive property that we've been doing. So if I give you this example of solving 2-step equations that involve parentheses. I can very easily do this for what we've been doing because we've learned to do the distributive property. So I'm going to look at this problem of 2 times x plus 3 is equal to negative 18. Now, if your problem looks this way, it's got parentheses in it. What do we know that we have to do with the 2 outside the parentheses? We got to do distributive property because that's what we've learned. So we want to take the 2 and we want to distribute to everything inside. So what does that give me after I distribute? 2x plus 6. Does everybody agree that that's 2x plus 6? Equals negative 18. After I do the distributive property, does that come back to what I just showed you on those first 3 examples? Okay. I'm going to box in my variable now. And what am I going to do to each side, Lyriel? Pay attention. Minus 6 equals minus 6. Plus 6 and minus 6 cancel. I bring down my 2x equals, what am I going to do to the minus 18 and the minus 6? Add them and keep the sign. What's my last step going to be to do?
divide by 2.
Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X equals
12.
negative 12. Okay? If you come back to do your check, you're going to take 2 parentheses x plus 3 equals negative 18. And I always go back to my original equation to check it. So I'm going to take 2 times negative 12 plus 3 equals negative 18. According to order of operations, what are we going to do first now?
Inside the parentheses.
All right, what is negative 12 plus 3? Negative 9. Is 2 times negative 9 equal to negative 18? So negative 18 equals negative 18. Check. That means this is my solution. This is method 1 of solving an equation when it has parentheses in the problem. Okay? We know to use the distributive property. However, there is another method that I know some students will like better than they do using the distributive property. Okay? So let's look at it. And I'm going to do the same problem, except I'm going to do it in method 2. I think I had 2 times x plus 3 equals negative 18. Is that right? Yep. Okay. Think of what is inside the parentheses as being your variable. Does the left side, is that 2 times something? Does that mean 2 times something in here? Okay, so let's think of it as what's in the parentheses as it being my variable, my big variable. If I had a one-step problem the other night, last night, if I had 2x equals negative 18, how would I solve that? Divide by 2. Okay, even though it's got parentheses in it, I'm not doing distributive first. This time I want to get rid of the 2 that's out front. So I'm going to divide this side by 2, and I'm going to divide this side by 2. So that cancels my 2 there. And what's left inside my parentheses is x plus 3 equals negative 9. On our one-step equations last night for homework, what did we do? When it was an addition problem. Minus 3 on each side. Cancels. X equals negative 12. Did I get the same thing? So is it going to matter which way I work it? Okay, so on your Canvas, I posted two explicit problems, method 1, method 2, and I wrote out the words for what you're going to do for what we just did right here. Method 1, I did what first? Distribute. I did distributive property first. Then I subtracted. Then I divided. But what did I do first on the second one down here? I divided by the number outside the parentheses. And the number outside the parentheses is just another factor, isn't it? After I divided, then I subtracted, didn't I? Okay, so you have 6 problems on the bottom on Canvas. The 6 problems on the bottom, I want you to work them using method 2 only. The 6 problems on the bottom, you're going to work them using method 2 only. Only do method 2 on those last 6. The first 24, you're going to work like our first 3 examples. I did not give you any that's using the distributive property because I'm specifically going to work with that tomorrow more. Good?